Thank you, MDL70. Happy 420. According to the countdown.
And we're only really here because thus far you've been right.
Sexual harassment to you and me. Sexual harassment. Panda. Sexual harassment. Panda. On me, sexual harassment, panda. Don't say that, don't touch there, don't be nasty, says the silly bear.
Patrick P. Shit. Patrick P. Shit. Used to be with Google. Used to be with Google.
Same response, sir.
Patrick P. Shit. Patrick P. Shit.
Same response, sir.
Used to be with Google. Used to be with Google.
Oh, Patrick Pichet?
P. Shit. Patrick P. Shit. Used to be with Google.
Same response, sir.
Guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizen
Oh, Jesus, we're in trouble.
can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals.
Nice. Nice. Dun dun dun. Yashanta. Dun, 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 dun. Nice. Nice. Hello and welcome everyone to the American Awakening, the Bergy-Bit. PFC Bergy reporting for duty. But actually, what I'm going to do today is we're going to go right into, I'm going to say hello to everyone here real quick. Missing parts. Hua. Oh my God. Thank you very much. Hip. Hello. MD170 again. Thank you very much for subscribing with Prime. I know. I saw Missing Parts. Oh, Hip. There you are. Hello, Missing Parts. Stalwart. Hello. Kawasaki Kid, truth is a light. Nice, Wicked, hello. Everyone, hello. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to jump right into an uninterrupted. So you're not going to get me going, oh, stop talking, of my interview with Mike Jaco on Mike Jaco's show with Scott Bennett. All right. So I am going to do that. And then afterwards, which is about an hour and a half. And then afterwards, I am going to do question and answer. So if you guys have questions, kind of let me know at the end. I thought it came out really good. And I thought, the one thing I like about this is that, Scott backs up what I was saying, which I think is important. So, without sitting here and babbling forever, which I will do, sit back and enjoy the show. If I get the right one here, I'll see you guys as soon as it's over. Again, it's about an hour and a half. We're not going to take a break.
Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. I got Scott Bennett, I got Patrick Bergy. These guys are the intel guys. Now, I was like the knuckle dragger that would, go out and chase down baddies, off of intelligence that they gave me. But I've had to play catch up with them, and so now we're all on the same team. Looking at these guys, exposing them, and we're going to keep exposing them. We've done a good job so far, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you.
All right, good. Good response. So we have a little email group that we're going to look at first. Both you guys are Army, former Army, intel, and you guys look at a lot of stuff. You know a lot of stuff, and you've been helping me expose a lot of people like General Flynn and Sidney Powell and some other people. I can't understand how General Flynn is still put on a pedestal. What do you guys think? What's going on with this?
Well, if I may just start off the chronology of this, the original chronology is back in 2018. I went to a conference in Dallas, Texas, the Operation Classified Conference put on by John B. Wells. I was there with James and Joanne Moriarty. Stuart Rhodes was there, a whole bunch of whistleblowers. That Special Forces guy, what's his name? Schaefer, right? Schaefer. I can't remember. Tony Schaefer, he was there too. No one liked Tony Schaefer, by the way. Everybody had a weird vibe about it. And I had some weird things happen up. Some lady coming up to me, Mr. Bennett, I'm Iranian intelligence. I said, bullshit. So they were doing scams and FBI plots and things to capture people. But among the participants, and Jason Goodman was there, who I think is an Israeli spy and operative. That's just my opinion, but he certainly looked like Mossad based on the ugliness of his nasal curvature. But I was there, and I had went up to Sidney Powell and General Flynn's brother, Michael, what's his name? Joe Flynn. Thank you, Joe Flynn. And I said to Sidney Powell, before she was his attorney, I gave a presentation on Shell Game, the book I wrote, which was documenting the terrorist financing that was being done through the State Department under Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, the law firm Covington and Burling. Remember that name? Yeah. And Union Bank of Switzerland. And Union Bank of Switzerland, of course, was directly tied with the Chinese Communist Party, Staple Street Capital, and the purchase of Dominion voting machines and other things. That's a different chapter down there. But I went to
nice.
Sidney Powell. Yeah. This whole matrix is caught up. It's like Candyland, but full of shit instead of molasses. So I go into Sidney Powell and I said, General Flynn is being represented by Covington and Burling. Covington and Burling is a party in the terrorist financing that I exposed in Shell Game, which they threw me in jail for. He needs to fire them. And I went to General Flynn's brother, Joe Flynn, and I said, Joe, you need to take this to your brother. He's being represented by Covington and Burling. And this guy Kellner, they're all a bunch of thieves and democrats. What the hell he's doing with them, I don't know. I didn't do it out of love for Flynn. I did it out of my knowledge of the treason that these people were doing in financing terrorism. Covington and Burling. Who else were part of Covington and Burling? The Attorney General Eric Holder and the Assistant Attorney General Lanny Brewer and Roger Zackheim, the son of my old boss Dov Zackheim, who had been the Pentagon comptroller when the 9/11 event hit. and a variety of other deep state operatives. So Joe Flynn and Sidney Powell take this back to General Flynn and said, we ran into this highly volatile Scottish German army officer who presented this book. What do you think? And he said, fire Covington and Burling and hire Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell calls me a couple months later saying, Scott, can you get me more information? Sure, no problem. I give her all the material on Covington and Burling. And she takes that and writes a motion, files it in the court saying, I'm his new attorney. Covington and Burling is fired, and we want to know everything that has been communicated between Covington and Burling and the Department of Justice. The moment she did that, they dropped the case like a hot potato and dismissed all charges. So it wasn't because of a magic feather that she pulled out of her butt and simply wrote onto a motion with this golden language that miraculously released General Flynn. No, it was because of the incestuous criminality that would have been revealed when the Pandora's box was opened that showed Covington and Burling, the law firm in Washington, D.C., and the Department of Justice, their old buddies and cronies that used to go to rainbow flag parties, were all working in cahoots against General Flynn. That's what would have been revealed. That's why the judge dismissed the case. And I also wrote an amicus brief to that effect, exposing all of this. I sent that amicus brief and other things to Donald Trump. But that is when Sidney Powell, Joe Flynn, General Michael Flynn all got together and said, ding dong, the witch is dead, we're free, and now we can march around like munchkins across America and do, Save America PAC and the Clay Clark events and blah, 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 blah. But don't mention Scott Bennett. Don't mention that he saved my ass. I want to make sure that we give the impression that we did it all. Bullshit. They didn't do a damn thing.
So looking back on that now, Scott, do you have any regrets of basically giving them an out? So they could figure it out themselves, but you gave them the one piece that got them over. It's kind of like Lloyd Brunson when he came up with his court case to come before the Supreme Court about the hey, you guys didn't do due justice on January 6th and take the 10 days that you should have and looked at the the legality of the voting. It's not about Democrat or Republican, it's about the Constitution. So you guys fail. That's the thing that got it through. That's the thing that you helped them get it through because you got the one thing that was needed and they just took advantage of it. And like you and Patrick here, who have done great things, you get kicked to the curb once they take advantage of you and use you.
Well, we swore an oath. We swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States as officers of the United States Army to uphold the Constitution and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that oath never ends. Right. And I did it for that reason. I didn't want anything from anyone. I didn't do it for anyone. I did it out of honor to my oath to the Army, to the Constitution, to the Republic, and to my God. And I would do it all over again. I would do it a little bit different. I would hold them to account. Yeah. I would hold them to the fire, and I intend to hold them to the fire. And that's where Patrick Bergy is coming in, and him and I kind of have a pincer operation by blind circumstance. And Pat and I met in Washington. We went to do the analytics of Trump's election fraud, and we went into the fight fully ready to unload magazines and blow and destroy everything that was trying to cover up and throw out the president, including the AFL-CIO plan for January 6th. And Sidney Powell and General Flynn and Joe Flynn and all sorts of colorful characters were there. But Pat and I went in like brothers of Rambo, going, okay, we're going to do our duty and fight and get all this stuff out there, get all this stuff shown to Pat Byrne and the rest of them. So I wouldn't have done anything different. The fight is still unfolding, and I'll put it this way, I'll end it here, Mike. We do everything honorably, and those who don't acknowledge the truth are dishonorable, and dishonorable character manifests in multiple dishonorable actions. And we've got nothing to fear. We don't back down. We don't retreat. We continue to march forward for the truth, for our republic, for our Constitution, and nothing on this land, nothing in this world will ever stop us from honoring and fulfilling our duty to support and defend the Constitution against domestic and foreign enemies. And the domestic enemies are the greatest threat to the people in this republic. Joe Biden, all the Democrats, and these rhinos which may include Sidney Powell, Michael Flynn, Joe Flynn, Pat Byrne, and all sorts of other colorful characters that seem to have dropped the ball and aren't completing, the football game, or even worse, maybe have turned around or are working on the other side. But I'll let Pat Bergy fill that in.
Patrick, so let's. You want me to share the screen and pull up your emails? You want to just jump in and start it off?
Yeah, no, that's cool. But while you do that, I just couldn't resist pointing out a thought that I had when Scotty mentioned the Iranian spy, right? I'm thinking, can you imagine like all of these, the class of 2020, right? For Iran's secret spy organization. They had to go back through and basically retrain them all to be gay. If they're going to infiltrate Biden's his administration, they're going to have to make them all cake crazy.
No, I think you're a little bit off. I think you have to be transsexual at this point.
Yeah.
So
right?
gay is passe. You have to be transsexual now because they're moving to transhumanism. So that it's progressive thing. So they're progressives. So they want to progress us to transhumanism. So
well, is that when Pat and I were in Washington, there was a weird little transgender guy who claimed to be in the army that claimed to be the brother of one of the top crypto analyst guys that was connected to Pat Byrne. This guy, we were surrounded by some very strange characters, but the strangest, this transgender guy with long hair who called himself another name, who had been a major in the army.
Yeah, the lady boy.
Yeah, a lady boy. Very, very weird.
She was with Joe Flynn.
Wow.
oh well, that's interesting. Because there's other people that are coming out. They're saying that Mike Flynn has switched sides. He's over. He's promoting, and he's for Ron DeSantis and no longer for Trump. So that's the word I'm getting behind the scenes. So all the stuff we're revealing right here, we've been revealing. People at some point you're going to find out this guy is bad to the bone. All right, so let's look into this. This was just yesterday, December 14th.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the day before, I got it like early, right after Tracy Joe got off, right after we got off the phone or the texting with Tracy Joe.
Okay.
I got a response from a guy from Sidney Powell's attorney calling me an idiot.
Wow.
And it was, and I'm like, wow, what was this from like my ex-wife or something? I looked at it, and then I looked at it and I'm like, oh shit. Well, that was a dick thing to say. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Well, that wasn't to me. He was just like talking shit about me and called me an idiot, sending it to me by accident, right? It's like, as an IT guy, those are some of your greatest moments, right?
Oh, yeah, I bet. So Minnie Powell did not even recall your name or that she had any communication with you. We found the emails by doing a search in the system. Your claims have no basis.
Well, it started out, right, with, we don't even believe you have anything. And then I responded back with, not only do I have everything, I published it in a 405-page book. And so I also took pictures of like the stuff in my book with her email and sent it to him along with the cover of the book. And now he's like starting to get like really pissed off. And so he responds back, well, okay, well, then so it went from you got nothing to, well, you only got this. Then it's like, well, you only got this. I'm like, this isn't going to end well for you, my friend. I can't imagine.
So I like the subject line. You have Sidney Powell disbarment. Ooh.
So Sidney Powell was being referred for disbarment by the Texas Bar. And I actually had an attorney that had represented me out of Texas. Her name was Kelly Sorrell. She turned out to be, what's his name? The guy with the eye patch, Stuart Rhodes' attorney. And apparently she was banging him too. So, and literally that's published and it's in the text messages and stuff. The DOJ snatched her up not long ago, and she's actually, from what I understand, well, she's going to court right now for her role in January 6th. Same judge as Rhodes, I believe.
Is she being criminally prosecuted or threatened to be?
Yeah, no, she literally is. No, they picked her up, they indicted her, but the charges aren't sedition like Rhodes. She's been communicating and working with the feds since at least when I saw her Thanksgiving right before Thanksgiving in 2021. So last year. Just before Thanksgiving, I saw her in Texas, and she was like, she broke down crying. She apologized to me for betraying me, and said that she was going to make everything right, going to the feds and everything. And I'm like, wonderful. But then, see, I didn't know at the time that she was like literally sleeping with Stuart Rhodes and shit. And I was set up with her from the beginning. So she's a Texas attorney. You got Sidney Powell, and I believe Lynn Wood was also involved with that. And basically, they were trying. They're calling for a disbarment for her filing, just a bunch of bogus stuff in Michigan and elsewhere.
Almost like money laundering or something. Is that what it is?
No, for just filing, frivolous claims, knowing that they weren't actually going to go anywhere or legitimate, right? That goes back to the 61 cases. And having actually been there, and Scott's nodding his head, right? He was there. These guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but it didn't matter. You could have walked in there with a whole evidence, right? The smoking gun of a voting machine or something. They wouldn't have cared. They had a narrative already planned, right? And so there was a bunch of stuff going on, but it was just smoke and mirrors. They already had everything figured out. Foreign election interference. They wanted to get the Insurrection Act invoked. They had been pushing that burn InfoWars, Military. They've been pushing that since Kentucky in 2019, right? Because and so if you can't do the Insurrection Act without having a evidence of foreign interference in the election, so that's all they wanted. That's where Italy Gate came up with, right? Italy Gate was that was all just completely a setup from the beginning. Nothing ever came from it. It kind of ended up going after or invoking Alexander Nix, if you remember right. He was actually involved with the Italy Gate thing, which I found ironic because Rudy Giuliani was actually handling that with Mike Tremarco, the Italy Gate thing. Trump tasked them with that. And, Rudy Giuliani was actually representing Tremarco in a $60 million lawsuit against Alexander Nix, the founder of Cambridge Analytica. Just a whole bunch of games going on that have been playing by the same people they've been playing this game since at least 2014, 15, 16. They got kind of shut down when Cambridge Analytica got shut down and Facebook got hit with all the fines. And now you have it coming out showing all of the assets within Facebook, the assets within Twitter, and all of these other organizations that I was actually exposing and calling out in Shadowgate, right? In my key tam. So I was calling out the actual election fraud not being voting machines. The election fraud was the command and control that these organizations, that our government has over the social media platforms that are impacting the outcome of elections. And now that's all anybody can freaking talk about, Mike. That's it.
So you have an email train that basically implicates all these guys. right?
Yeah. And so I sent that into the Texas bar saying, listen, I have I have an email from Sidney Powell from back in 2020 when we were up in DC. And I believe the information that I have will kind of contradicts some of the statements that Sidney Powell has been making it to the court. One specific one was Sidney Powell was claiming that, they claimed that Lynn Wood had signed off on one of the Michigan cases, right? And Lynn Wood's like, listen, I didn't put my name on that. Somebody did that. They just put my name on it.
Yep.
And so you have Sidney Powell coming out saying, oh, no, I remember him telling me to do that, but that's the only evidence of it, right? Well, here I am with an email from her where she is speaking on behalf of Lynn Wood in a legal capacity in an email exchange with me. And she's lying, right? At least according to Lynn Wood, because Lynn Wood said she never shared that with him. He
Right.
knew nothing about it. And in fact, when she said that Lynn Wood didn't have, that neither Lynn Wood or I knew anything about Ali Alexander, Ali Akbar, who was later very much been, pretty much tapped as being one of the largest people involved in inciting the events of January 6th. She said, we didn't know them, but in fact, Lynn Wood did know Ali Alexander. Ali Alexander was the one that referred Lynn Wood to the Sandman for the salmon lawsuit with CNN.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, the one who was yelled at for calling a white supremacist because of the Indian guy that was banging.
Yep.
With no Vietnam record as he claimed. Yeah. So he got called out quite a bit. That was interesting.
Yes.
But he was introduced, Lynn Wood was introduced to Nicholas Sandman through Ali Alexander. So when Sidney Powell responded to me in an official email, she lied to me, making a claim about Lynn Wood that was inaccurate.
Mhm.
So and here you
At some point in this, Patrick, Lynn Wood basically extricated himself from that group.
Yeah, he did. It's like I did.
They were doing taking donations and stuff like that. And Lynn Wood eventually said, I pulled myself out of there. Those guys had a lot of donations come in and there's no accountability.
That's the same thing that I did, right?
Mhm.
I was involved with the same group of people and everything seemed great and we're doing great things. But then as you start looking around and you start seeing the actions that they take are, and that they're not only completely separate from their words, but they're literally what I've been trying to expose and call out, then I was like, whoa, I'm stepping out. I'm getting away from this. When I did that, I was attacked by the same people in the same fashion that Lynn Wood was when Lynn Wood tried to get out of it, right? It's like they destroy you.
If I may, I've got a couple documents I'd like to show you too to augment this, Michael. And what Pat is saying is exactly right. We went into the November 2020 meeting in Washington, D.C. with a variety of people. And one of the documents that I had presented had come to me from high intel sources, people I had in Hong Kong, people I had elsewhere. And the packet that I had brought and I'd been invited out to present was the AFL-CIO's plan for disruption operations following the election. So the smoking gun was that. And Pat's exactly right. We went in there and I presented a PowerPoint presentation and Patrick Byrne was there and Joe Flynn was there. And I said, gentlemen, it was like a military briefing. Gentlemen, here's what they're doing. Here's what the enemy's going to do. Here's what we need to do. We need to call them domestic terrorists. We need the president to do this and this and that. And I'm going to show you the documents that I put up there. And like Pat said, they had their own narrative. They had their own game. And as far as I'm concerned, Rudy Giuliani, in my opinion, is a traitor. The commissioner from New York, who was also part of the 9/11 cover-up, is a traitor. and everybody else is associated. Pat Byrne, they covered up the smoking gun, which then became January 6th. This didn't just happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they planned January 6th after the briefing we gave in Washington. And
They
I'm going to
said that,
tell you, right?
Right. Now, do you think that Donald Trump knows all this? Because
You
he
know what?
pardoned General
He
Flynn.
doesn't
so-
have, yeah, he does. I sent my book Shell Game and a full outline of all of the criminality that was done to Senator Dick Black and all sorts of people. In fact, I gave an affidavit when we were out there in Washington.
Mhm.
Pat knows we had all sorts of colorful people out there, including the boy toy guy with the long hair. I didn't have him. I had some Texas guy.
Right.
But we all gave affidavits, and I read to him the very affidavit that I had sent to Donald Trump in 2017 as an officer. Shell Game, here's all the revelations of the terrorist financing. For about half an hour, I read to him everything in my book. So he got it. And everybody associated with that guy got it, which was Flynn, Patrick Byrne, Sidney Powell, Joe Flynn, and by implication, Donald Trump. I also mailed this to Donald Trump before. So, this bullshit about plausible deniability, I don't buy that, because what's happened to our country? We have hit the reef. The boat's bottom has been ripped out. How many people have been thrown in jail from January 6th? We've got wars in Ukraine. How much money have we sent over to Ukraine? How much devastation have we caused? We're on the brink of natural disaster with Russia. We've got homosexuality flooding the country. And the biggest thing that I've got an opposition with, we're flooding the country with the COVID-19 vaccines that's causing everybody to become infertile, everybody's heart to explode, everybody to become a walking retard zombie with blood clots, and you're giving this to your children? Now, Stephen Pidgeon was there with Pat Bergy, and Pat knows we wrote an executive order for Trump to sign saying no American will ever be forced to get a vaccine. And we gave it to the Brazilian ambassador to give it to him, who knew Trump. He went on and on about how he knew Trump and loved. He was the one who introduced Melania to Trump. None of that stuff was done, and everybody has suffered. This country is dissolving like a sugar cube in water. So there's no plausible deniability for Trump. He better give an answer and fix this, or else. I mean, there's no country left. But let me just show you these documents, Mike.
Okay.
I'll share screens, and I want to show you these things. And Pat knows these from our time together. I'm going to go through them real quick. You see these?
Yep.
Are
Yep.
on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through, this was the AFL-CIO document. This is my summary. I told all these people, Pat Byrne, Joe Flynn, Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, the AFL-CIO union is currently undergoing an operation against POTUS. The operation was planned and disseminated 3 months before the presidential election to undermine the president and elect Joe Biden as president in the United States. See Exhibit 1. So what I'm going to show you too here is Exhibit 1. This is the briefing. This is my whole affidavit. But let me show you the. Oops. Let me show you the exhibit. Here we go. Let's see if this works. This is the whole exhibit that went down here. Here we go. Here's Exhibit 1. Come on. This was the actual AFL-CIO document. See the bottom here, AFL-CIO, how to respond to Trump. This is their whole plan. This is what I presented on a PowerPoint presentation. Pat Bergy
What's
was
the date on that?
right? Trumpka, the president of the AFL-CIO, their whole plan. And there's multiple slides. We will win, defend, mobilize. This was the AFL-CIO's plan to engage in domestic insurrection operations at Washington, D.C. and do all sorts of other things. I was presenting this to the president's men.
Hey, I just lost power.
Oh, they don't watch. Well,
All right. So when were you giving this to the president's men?
This was given when Pat and I were out there in Washington, D.C., which was around November. It was before Thanksgiving. So before, it was like, 4 days before Thanksgiving. So this whole PowerPoint was given. Now I'm going to show you another
So
document
this is right after the election.
right after the election.
Wow.
This is before. This is over a month before January 6th.
Yeah.
Here's what the AFL-CIO and the Democrats are going to do. They're going to shut down Washington. They're going to engage in all sorts of disruption operations.
Oh my God. You have to put this on the internet, man.
Well, I'll send it to you. I'll send you a copy by email and you can put it up. Now, let me show you the other document that was shared.
Uh-huh.
Let me bring it up here. I'm not a technical wizard like our old friend Pat here, so forgive my time slowness. Okay, you see this?
Yeah, it's up there.
This is Union Bank of Switzerland working with the Chinese Communist Party and Staple Street Capital to purchase Dominion voting machines. And it goes back to 2009. 2009, when old faggy Barack Obama, who's married to the man love doll Michael LeBon Robinson, who used to play football at the University of Oregon, back in 2009, and I'll send this to you too. Pat knows this. This was when UBS, the largest voting, the UBS and ES&S, the largest voting machine manufacturer in the United States at the time, acquired Premier, the second largest company in the market. However, the new ownership of ES&S was not more than a year old. It goes through the process of this whole purchase. It mentions Covington and Burling, Eric Holder, and Covington and Burling, and the Department of Justice. So you see 2009, 2010, 2012. Essentially what happened was the Chinese Communist Party entered into an agreement with Union Bank of Switzerland to carve off a thing called UBS Securities, LLC. And it was arranged a $200 million private placement for Staple Street Capital, a previous company name. So the Chinese Communist Party in 2014 gave UBS Securities $200 million to work with Staple Street Capital to purchase Dominion voting machines and these other voting machines, with the promise that the UBS Securities LLC was going to be fully given over to UBS, and that would be the bank that basically allowed UBS to take control of the Chinese citizens' domestic money. That was the bank that the Chinese citizens would use. In 2019, UBS Group said UBS AG is expected to be permitted to increase its stake in UBS Securities China from the current level of 51% to 100% in December of 2020. So in December of 2020, after we've gotten rid of Trump, UBS shall own 100%. You no need pay us. No. You no need pay us. We give you 100% of UBS Group Securities that is going to own the Chinese domestic leisure income, the money of the Chinese citizenry. So this was a document that goes back to 2009 that shows the timeline and the evolution of the relationship between Union Bank of Switzerland, the Chinese Communist Party, LLC Securities, Staple Street Capital, Dominion voting machines, with the climax of at December of 2020, this whole thing would mature, and UBS would own it. So I can send you this too, but let me just read this and I'll stop because I know Pat wants to talk too. The Chinese Communist Party's deep state, Zhang Zenom, Zheng Guokong, who led, plotted, and executed the Dominion voter frauds, several evidences. The Chinese Communist Party and Union Bank of Switzerland have created a joint organization called UBS Securities, LLC, which is a front organization used to purchase election voting counting technology companies, Dominion voting machines, ES&S, Premier voting machines, for the purposes of overthrowing the Trump presidency and temporarily installing Joe Biden. Origins of Dominion, Staple Street Capital, and UBS Securities, founded by Wang Quishan in Beijing. Also, the Chinese Communist Party purchased Dominion for $400 million on October 8th, 2020. The $400 million US dollars that Lynn Wood referred to is the second capital investment by UBS Securities to Staple Street Capital. So Lynn Wood was talking about this. He didn't know the intel. He didn't have any of this stuff. I think we sent it to him subsequently. But this, Mike, and I'll stop there. This is the timeline which shows the Chinese Communist Party, Union Bank of Switzerland, entered into a financial agreement to then use that money to use Staple Street Capital to buy the voting machines and remove Donald Trump through a variety of other fraud that was being simultaneously done by AFL-CIO. And then as a reward, in December of 2020, UBS would be given not 51%, but 100% control of this UBS Securities in China.
Okay, so leave that up. Let me ask you a couple questions here. Now, you said earlier UBS, you found out, was funding terrorism, right? Was that the same bank?
That's the same bank. That's why I was brought out.
And then you went to jail for that.
I went to jail for that. I went to jail for that and exposed.
American military officer went to jail for exposing UBS involved in operations to fund terrorism against the world, pretty much. All right. So I also see in here Hong Kong.
Let me just add this. They said that I filled out a housing form wrong, and that constituted a violation of 18 U.S. Code 100-1. That's what they threw me in jail for.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Have you ever, you've filled out enough housing forms, right? You know what kind of bullshit he's talking here. Everybody fucks with the house. First of all, everybody gets everything they can out of their fucking housing form. I don't care.
Right.
Okay. Hell, they actually wrote into our contract, the Castles Korea contract in 2011 when they redid it, that we weren't required to provide receipts for our $3,800 a month housing allowance, right? So, I mean, it's the entire thing's a massive scam. And to actually see someone get fucking thrown in jail for a housing issue, are you kidding me?
It's a setup. It's like, Jeffrey Epstein, has dirt on all the politicians because they've had sex with underage girls or boys or whatever. And that's what they use that against people. So they use whatever they can against us to keep us in line. If we get out of line, they're like, oh, look, you didn't fill out this form right. It's like, you told me I didn't have to. Oh, no, we didn't say that. So yeah, it's the same old stuff. So Scott, Scott, the Hong Kong mission. So you were actually in Hong Kong while they're trying to push back on the Chinese. Yep. Remember? I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2019, it looked like Hong Kong was about to break away from China, and they had tanks on the border and they get ready to come over. And then COVID-19 comes and everything gets shut down. And then we, lose the election. So this is all interesting because UBS, I've talked about how the big banks follow the money. The big banks, there's Chase Bank here in the United States, which is funding things too. I'm not going to point it out, but I've never used that name before, but Chase Bank is funding things that are coming across the border. Let me put it like that. All right. So there's lots of stuff that's going on with these banks, guys. And Scott, absolutely amazing. Now, this is the bullshit part, guys. We have to expose this stuff. They have all this stuff. Get these some bitches and put them in jail. Yeah. It's we expose it and we get the hell beat out of us all the time, because we're exposing this stuff. It's very frustrating. We shouldn't have to do this. They have all this information. The white hats have all this information. So it's time to come out, because the longer they sit on this stuff, the more they look like gray hats, and then eventually they become black hats. So this is amazing. Good job, guys.
A quick question a couple of questions for Scott. When was that AFL-CIO document disseminated? Do you remember?
I believe it was August, September of 2020.
And okay, and this that you have up right here, that was in your affidavit, if I remember right, correct?
That's correct. That's
Now,
correct. And it
did
was
that
built
end
upon
up,
my experience also in Hong Kong in
yeah,
2019.
did that end up in any of the court filings with Sidney Powell?
I don't know, but it was sent to her. It was sent to General Flynn. It was sent to Joe Flynn. It was sent to Patrick Byrne and all of the usual suspects that ran that operation that you and I were at.
Mm.
They were given all of this. In fact, Millie Weaver
You don't know.
had done a recorded supplemental affidavit, and I've got the video where I explicitly explained this timeline and the AFL-CIO, and we did a video, and she was still part of Pat Burns' operation at the time. So I did my due diligence to get all of this stuff out in their hands, expecting at any moment we'd be called in to testify before Congress or in the intelligence committees or part of, the president's internal team to say, what's happening. And nothing ever was done. Nothing.
So you're giving it to the criminals, expecting the criminals to like expose themselves. So that's why nothing ever happened. Now we're seeing that. You thought you were dealing with people like, the three of us, we're on the up and up, we're constitutionalists. We're, supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States, till our death or whatever it takes. But these guys are circumventing it on purpose.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
What were we even doing in DC? Right? You don't even know if they used your stuff in the affidavit in any of the court filings, which is almost probably certainly to say it wasn't, right? Neither was mine.
Yeah, and that's
why were we even there?
Yeah,
right?
that's the question. Just Sidney Powell's attorney that you've got a right to do because they're the ones who kicked on your door. Hey, what did you do with these filings, with these documents, with these presentations that showed that domestic enemies in the AFL-CIO and the Union Bank of Switzerland and the Chinese Communist Party were working to overthrow an American president? What did you do, Sidney Powell? What did you do, Patrick Byrne?
Well, Scott, I'm kind of thinking, I didn't know Scott before. The first time I met Scott was he arrived almost the same time, maybe a day after I got there, 15th or so of November. And all I heard was, this guy's like a great intel guy. He's written some books. He's got all the information. He's really, and you were well known and everything. And I'm thinking, the only reason we were there was to actually provide credibility for people that didn't have these backgrounds. Like I said, they already had, in my opinion, exactly what they were going to do in mind. And I think the only reason you and I were there was to provide some legitimacy with actual, people that can, that would give them credibility. It kind of seems like that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely does. And I like the way you term that because it brought credibility to their team. You guys, military guys, former military guys, good, honest, hardworking, law-abiding, Constitution, swear and defend against foreign and domestic. And they're like, okay, we got these front guys. Now we're gonna in the background, we're gonna screw this up. So if I saw that AFL-CIO, thing, I'd be arresting people right then. So there should be people, everyone that sees this right now, if you're not arresting those people right now, you're wrong. And you're going to be held accountable right now. So it's out there. It's out there. Everyone should know it. I mean, you're represented all these people before. So all of those people that you outlined, you have information that can back that up. Do you have email, records? Because that seems okay.
I've got the Chinese operatives in Hong Kong that provided the intel. And that's why we were very careful about it. I didn't want anybody exposed and being killed. They raided the Epoch Times office after that and burned the office. So this is very delicate stuff. You and I know, and Pat knows, this is not stuff that you trifle with. And that's why we were very careful in what we released, with the full expectation that we'd be brought into a high-level skiff with the president himself to say, here's what's going on. And we were sitting there, like Pat saying, what the hell are we doing? Where are you? What's going on? We are trained in these areas. There is no one that can brief the president like we can, because these are our particular areas of expertise. Pat knows. Pat was the one who designed the entire matrix of how the Truth Social and all that stuff needs to evolve, bringing his technical capabilities. I was psychological warfare. Here's what the bad guys are doing. Here's what they're going to plan on doing. And nothing we said was ever acted upon. And it is an act of treason against the United States. And it is the seditious conspiracy. And you name numerous other laws that they violated. And
So
we
everyone that knew this, everyone that you gave that to, everyone that was in any of these briefings, everyone could be seditious or treasonous held responsible.
Misprision of a felony at the very minimum. When you discover a felony and you do not report it to a government official, a judge, or a police officer, you're guilty of misprision of a felony when you know a felony has occurred or is about to occur.
Right. So a lot of these guys need to go bye-bye. I don't know why they're still around. I don't know why. Are there some kind of front? Are they allowing them? Is no one taking action on any of this stuff? Come on. These guys are still out there in the truther community, acting like they're one of us, like good guys, and working the system. And behind the scenes, because I've heard from people in the political realm that says that General Flynn comes in and backstabs them behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
Well, he backstabbed James. Let me just add this. He backstabbed James and Joanne Moriarty, which were Americans in Libya at the time when the NATO operation was going in and blowing up Libya. They were the ones who were there for oil contracts, and they escaped by the skin of their teeth. And they were gotten out on a Russian trawler. A Russian ship said, "Your people will not save you. Come with us." And they got out barely by their lives. And the Russians got them out, and they got back to Italy and came back to the United States. The FBI and the CIA were saying, "How did you get out?" And General Flynn went into Pete Sessions, the congressman out of Texas, Pete Sessions, who was the congressman for James and Joanne Moriarty. We gave this to Trump too and did a video affidavit. Pete Sessions calls in General Flynn and says, "What about these people, the Moriartys? They've been in Libya. They know the tribes." And he says, quote, "They're great intel assets. They're the greatest intel we could have, but they've been soft killed. They've been soft killed by the CIA." And General Flynn didn't stand up to save these people, didn't stand up as an officer to say they know more about Libya than anyone else. They have more pull with the Libyan tribes than any diplomat in the State Department. But that's an example of Flynn stabbing these people in the back. And they went through Glenn Beck and all sorts of, they all turned their back on the Moriartys. And they tried to plant drugs in their car, but they had their car worked on by a mechanic. And then a cop pulls them over and the cop says, "I'm looking where you're telling me and there's nothing there." What wasn't there, officer? Drugs that had been planted by the FBI or the CIA? Who did that and why? General Flynn has something to answer about that too.
Wow. So yeah, I see where you guys are talking about, because when I was in Beirut for the CIA, somebody made a mistake with one of the phones. So it was supposed to be a secure phone and accidentally made a call on that phone. It cost the lives of 9 people. 9 people were killed.
Open line.
Yeah.
Remember that?
It is very, very important, like you're talking about. You have to protect assets, but people hide behind that. They hide behind that. I've seen this over time. And these people are hiding behind that. That we're involved in top secret information and moving stuff around. We work with CIA, so you can't touch us because it's all hidden information, and that would be against it would be national security problem if we did. No, you guys are treasonous. You guys are going to get executed, and that's what's going to happen to them.
It was a soft coup.
Yeah, totally. And so we know that. So who's doing anything about this?
Soft coup or hard grift? I'm not sure.
Somebody needs, we're calling it out right here. It's like, people are going to look at this and go, "Mike Flynn, no way." I hear this all the time. It's like you guys and Linwood and me are hammering these guys. But no one does anything. No one wants to believe us. Oh, those guys are flakes. Here's the information for you. Here's the information. It's
The
clear.
truth. The truth is what presents. We don't have an agenda. Pat and I don't have an agenda.
If they were good guys, I'd be like on side of them. I'd be like, yeah, let's go. Yay, let's go. But and you guys brought the information. I'm like, they're done. They're done.
We don't have a cyber army. These guys, they boast of their cyber soldiers, their cyber warriors. These are freaking cyber sociopaths that are paid to fulfill a deliverable, and that deliverable it usually involves taking whoever the target is, regardless, and doing everything humanly possible to destroy their credibility, their relationships, their businesses, anything around them, if they're the target. And so you and I, we don't have cyber armies, cyber soldiers, right? We have the truth, and we're highly persistent. And we see through these fabricated attacks. A lot of people don't. I've been devastated myself for standing up. In that letter that I sent to them, that guy came back and gave me all this shit, right? Immediately. Oh, this guy's an idiot. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. Okay. I sacrificed and stood up, right, to send that email to Sidney Powell, knowing that I was going to get in a lot of shit, because here I was, you got Ali Alexander, who's now the face of Stop the Steal. And he's up on stage with Sidney Powell and stuff, right? And I'm sitting here as a veteran, as a cyber, years in cybersecurity, cyber warfare. I've got this guy pegged as a major threat. He's literally in the affidavit as a subject of election fraud that I had given to Sidney Powell, right? And so they give these people a platform. They bury us. And when I sent that to Sidney Powell, right, I did it, and I said right in the email, listen, don't get mad at Millie, Gavin, or Tory. They are so pissed off at me for doing this, right? It's in the email that you have there. I'm like, this is on me, but I can't sit here and not say something when you've got this man on the stage with you. And so they respond back, hey, thank you, right? In public, they respond back, thank you. In private, they turned around the next day and did everything they could to begin to destroy me. A whistleblower who was literally trying to expose the relationship between our government and social media that right now is all anybody can talk about. And right now, everybody is going, wow, this is why Trump doesn't even, this is why the Biden administration does not have a legitimate administration, because they cheated, right? We get that. They may not have even broken the law, right? But we know from playground days that when you cheat to win, you don't legitimately own those marbles, right? You might leave with the marbles, but all the kids know those aren't your marbles. You're just bigger. And, eventually we're going to get those fucking marbles back, and we're going to stick your head in a toilet.
Amen.
Theoretically.
Or something along those lines.
Hypothetically.
Stick your head in a noose or something like that. All right, so this is great. This is what you were talking about.
Yes, sir.
It's this idiot, Bergy. So, oops, you got this. Actually does have evidence. I have email correspondence warning Sidney about Ali Akbar's, aka Ali Alexander, criminal record, and she was giving him a platform. She responded saying neither she or Lynn Wood was aware of his background and thanked me. She then proceeded to give him a platform up until January 6th. So I've seen video of him all the way up to that point. I have email correspondence from Lynn Wood saying he had no idea about the email from Sidney Powell made very specific claims for him in which, like, what Linwood claims she did to him in Michigan. Cindy also knowingly accepted and submitted the affidavit of one Tori Morris. Tori had been convicted of 12 counts of fraud. So yeah, that's a good person to have on your team.
I'm sorry, she wasn't convicted. That's an argument that she likes to make. She was found guilty. Apparently, there's a difference.
Well, isn't that when the FBI brings you together and says you're now an informant, you work for us?
Well, if that's your argument, I wasn't convicted. I was found guilty by 3 different judges. But if that's your argument, okay, I'll give you that one. She was found guilty by 3 separate federal judges.
Of 12 counts of fraud, you go to jail for 30 years for that. It's
Yeah.
five years a pop for fraud.
Wow.
No, she was, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And
So here's another one. Since my name is Patrick Bergy, and I have emails and other forensically verifiable documents showing Sidney Powell, Lynn Wood, Kelly Sorrell, Texas attorney, indicted by J6 DOJ, conspired to harm and silence me after I came to them with evidence, like we're all talking about right now. You guys are both showing these guys evidence, showing affidavits they were submitting into court. Now, Patrick, I know you just recently went to Palm Beach and did put in an affidavit in there, right?
Yeah.
You guys are doing amazing stuff, as well as people. Go ahead.
Real quick, just to, you had helped out tremendously with that, and thank you very much, you and Tracy Cho. Result of that, I did that on Thursday, right? On Friday, you saw the video. The next day, Friday, Patrick Byrne came out and said, it might just end up coming out that I may have been partly responsible for the raid on Mar-a-Lago. You heard that from his mouth, right?
Yes.
And that's what I was saying. That's why I did it. So did I not prove myself correct on that?
Yes, you did.
It was worth every bit of support.
I can say Pat called me that night when Pat Byrne had said that. He called me at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And that's like 3 or 4 o'clock in Florida.
Yeah.
And he says, look at what Pat Byrne just admitted to, what I've been saying all along.
Now, do you think someone gave him a tip-off?
I think something's mentally wrong with Patrick Byrne, and Linwood has said this too, but there's something broken in his brain. He is not a functional human being. He may be autistic in some capacity, but I don't think he has any moral compunction at all. I think that's the real Pat Bergy and I have kind of discovered and intuitively sensed this about these people as we have progressed 2 years after, is the absence of moral strength and character and honesty in these people.
Yeah. No, I agree. Everything.
Yeah.
With that.
So you're basically saying that you were targeted and coordinated with, and there was a coordinated attack by Lynn Wood.
Well, at the time, okay, so there's actually 2 emails that I sent. He actually acknowledges the second one, which I had never had acknowledgement or confirmation of receipt from. So that was actually significant. I sent her one on December 3rd, which she responded back to. I sent her another one on on January 20th, basically saying, listen, the blood on everybody, the blood of everybody on January 6th is on your hands.
Yes.
You had this information. Yep. Now, I said the person who I warned you about is now being looked at and potentially even being indicted for inciting this. Had you taken action on the information I had given you back on December 3rd, January 6th would have been a peaceful event. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I said in the January 20th thing, which they've now acknowledged receiving. I also said that it was like her and Lynn Wood, but that's because she had responded back to me saying that she had spoken to Lynn Wood about that. Now, in December 3rd of 2021, like 1 year later, how cool is that, right? I end up announcing that I'm going to see Lynn Wood. That announcement was probably pretty stupid, or maybe brilliant. We don't know. but I was absolutely attacked by Tori and all of her cyber soldiers with disinformation to Lynn Wood. That freaked out Lynn Wood. They did not want me to speak to Lynn, and that created a bunch of chaos between like Lynn and I, right? And distrust, which is what they wanted. But it also, I learned so much from that, right? And so the things that I talk about today, they're all based on my experiences of kind of like, just fishing. And then every once in a while, like in that email, catching a whale and building context to be able to help understand something that's way above my pay grade, that's really complex. A lot of it is just a bunch of people that were there with, like interests, right? But a lot of it, or at least a portion of it, was organized, tactical, and by all definition, a coup, right? Or an attempted coup. And that's still going on.
Yeah.
I requested, so I am requesting, I'm providing a ton of information right now to the Texas bar, right? But I told, and I'm not going to go into anything that they're asking me or anything like that. I want them to be successful.
Yes. Yes.
And I wish I didn't have to. I wish I could go to a fucking Republican and say, hey, help me out. This is your party. Why do I got to go to a damn Democrat to help me get the truth?
Yeah.
This is my party that I'm a Republican. I'm trying to clean up garbage that's turning that's absolutely decaying a good party. I can't fix the Democrats. They got to fix their own shit, right? But meh.
Well, Matt Gaetz should be the one that heralds this and champions this, and I would just add, of course,
is a freaking he's completely in on it.
yeah. Well, that's what we're learning by their acts of omission.
I've got Matt Gaetz holding my affidavit on January 3rd, 2019, the day he was sworn into office. I was there VIP at DeSantis's inauguration, and I spoke to him. And then a few weeks later, we get this information to him, and you know what he does? He fucking ghosts me, just like Judge Pirro did, just like Sarah Carter did, just like Devin Nunes did. And Devin Nunes, he had all of my information. My congressman had faxed him all of this information on December 18th of 2018 when he was still in charge of the Congress, right? Of the Intel Committee in Congress. They turned it over a week later. They could have done something. So what does he do? Matt Gaetz, he doesn't do anything. Not only does he not do anything, he turns around and I believe uses it to get this freshman congressman a seat on the Intel Committee by Devin Nunes, who was the only other person that had it. I think he just held it up with him. I think these people are treasonous, lying. Oh, it's so frustrating as a whistleblower. It's so frustrating as a patriot. It's so frustrating as someone who spent 7 years of his life overseas and gave up, sacrificed so much for his country to have these pieces of shit do this. And I'm sorry, but I'm so sick of it. And anybody who wants to defend them or support them are just nothing but aiding and abetting a fucking terrorist.
All right, so let's go. Let's go into another little direction. This has been great conversation on this subject. It's been amazing.
Well, let me just add one final close, if I can, 30 seconds.
Right.
When I had Patrick Bergy, and we can keep going, I've got no problem. But when I had Patrick Bergy on American Media Periscope telling the story, John Michael Chambers said, I don't want him on the channel ever again. Oh, really? And then when I persisted, and I had him back on again, because all I care about is the truth. And I was calling out what Sidney Powell and Flynn were doing. John Michael Chambers said, I don't want you part of this network anymore. So he cut me off. And of course, I'm going to sue them till they bleed from the eyes. But the other funny thing was, besides John Michael Chambers and American Media Periscope, which I think is a total limited hangout, I think they're all Mossad operatives now, or being interested by them. You also had Clay Clark, who had invited me to come out and speak. But when they had run it by Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn and Pat Byrne and Joe Flynn, who love to go with their bells and whistles like the little clowns they are, when he said, hey, I got Scott Bennett coming on, then they went pale. They froze and said, no, do not bring him on or we're not coming. And Clay Clark, who will also sue till he bleeds from the eyes, said, Scott, I can't have you come on or else 4 people aren't going to come on and talk. Oh, really? What is it about Scott Bennett that puts them in such fear? Is it because I was going to expose the fraud that Sidney Powell has made her career on a lie that she and General Flynn suddenly got out? No, that's what it was, is Clay Clark was influenced by Sidney Powell, Joe Flynn, Patrick Byrne, General Michael Flynn, and Michael Flynn also went against Bergy, had him kicked out of a church pastor big event that they had. So what they, by their actions, by their fruits, you shall know them. And if they think they're going to escape, they don't know the tenacity of some Army guys, because we never stop and we'll keep coming at them.
Absolutely. We keep coming after this. There's same thing. Sworn to defend, foreign and domestic. So I mean, and we don't ever give that up. If we see a problem, I have come after so many problems after I got out, probably more than when I was in. All right, so let's shift a little bit. We don't have to stay long, but Scott, you and I have talked on a couple occasions with some really incredible gentlemen about Ukraine. Now, my thoughts on what's going to happen in Ukraine fairly soon is that Russia is going to steamroll right over there and annihilate all the Nazis that are left. And they're going all the way to the border and shut down any more people coming across from Poland. All right. So once that's done, they're just going to do mop-up operations and keep it that way. Now, the problem that I see right now is these deep state assets these Nazis are trying to start a nuclear war. They did a drone, an old Soviet level drone, seriously, an old Soviet level drone that was packed with the latest technology from the US and whoever. And they flew it into a nuclear strike base. Imagine if the cartels on the Mexican border flew a drone into our nuclear strike base aircraft and damaged them. What would happen? So imagine that happening, guys. All right. So what's your thoughts on this, Scott? And then Patrick, we'll let you have some word.
Well, let me just say your attitude, your opinion on that is shared by Scott Ritter and shared by Colonel Doug McGregor and shared by Senator Dick Black and shared by myself. The Russians are going to steamroll, and they're done playing nice. They're taking off the gloves, and they're going to go in and annihilate and wipe out the electricity grids of Odessa and elsewhere. They have to, because they have been trying to play nice and diplomatically with the West since the beginning. And the West has acted like a bunch of crazed lunatics on a menstrual cycle. And Russia said, okay, that's it. We're going to wait till the ground freezes. Nobody knows how to fight better than Russians, especially in winter. And they are going to they're going to go over and do steamrolling operations that may include the annihilation of certain parts of Poland, as well as Ramstein, Germany. Stephen Pidgeon was talking about that yesterday. He said, I would not be surprised if the Russians took aggressive action into NATO and said, we're not tolerating any more of your games. Ukraine is done and the Nazis are done, and we are doing cleanup operations. And the NATO countries and the European Union, it's all dissolving, and they are not going to do a single thing in reciprocity against Russia, because not only is their technology dismally a failure, but Russia is so pissed off, Mike, that they are just saying, try it. We're waiting for you. You want to pick a fight? We're not just going to hit you and break your nose. We're going to break your nose. We're going to break your arm. We're going to break your legs and leave you completely frozen, and be thankful that we don't take your life. Russia is done with this because it's been 8 years. Biochemical labs developed in Ukraine, used against Russia, the genocide of the Eastern Ukrainians for 8 years. you Nazi lunatics covered in tattoos that our relatives fought in World War II, Russia and the outlawing of Russian media, the West and the EU is in complete meltdown, and I would just say it's a judgment of God upon the West in general. And look at the LGBT homosexual flags and all of the decadence, the moral degradation that reflects Sodom and Gomorrah. That spiritual wickedness, I think, is what is causing the West to sink and Russia rise. And look at all of the other nations that are turning with affection towards Russia: Africa, Saudi Arabia, the Middle East in general, China. And I think that's going to domino. I think Europe is going to break apart, and every European smaller country is going to make concessions, agreements, and they have to have oil and fertilizer, or they're all going to be dead. And Ursula von Leyen, who says, we must all suffer for the Reich. We must all worship the climate. Everyone's going, go to hell, Ursula. We're done with you and your fag boys, Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron, and your little Indian shoeshine boy, Rishi Sunak. The European people are done with them, like the Americans are done with this piece of garbage, Joe Biden. So I think there's going to be great revolution in the next 6 months in Europe, too.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, I don't put it past going into Rheinstein as well. And in Poland, because what was Poland at one time? It was part of Germany. It was part of the Soviet Union, and they let them go back. You can go back, just don't become part of NATO. Well, they didn't become part of NATO, and they owned Germany after World War II. And like, oh, we'll let this side go, that to the West, and we're going to keep this side, just keep you guys in line. And then eventually they let it go, but don't be bad. And they've been bad. So they, in all rights, they can go in and do this, just like I talked about. If Mexico came in, which they're doing really, and were invading us, what would we do? We would spank them. So at some point that border is going to get spanking too.
And I'm going to send you, Mike, I'll send Pat True a report that Senator Cox had done back in 2000 that I remember when I was in Washington reading. And it is an astounding intelligence assessment of how the Clinton presidency in the 1990s completely betrayed and destroyed the potentiality of Russia and caused the massive economic implosion in 1998 through a variety of IMF loans, which was intended to economically devastate Russia to make it easier to do these military operations. I'll send you this report, and you see all of the evidence from the 1990s and onward of the horrific damage that we did to Russia. And no wonder Russia doesn't trust us. And that's the greatest failure. And Scott Ritter said that too, because Russia could have been our greatest friend if we hadn't raped and cannibalized and attempted to dismember them. And they said, we're done with this. And it's the greatest failure, missed opportunity in the history of the United States, was our failure to embrace Russia. And this madness that is being channeled is absolutely obscene. I've never been so sickened and ashamed of this country and our government that I am now.
Yeah. And the old Soviet Union, was taken over by the Khazarian mafia, the Nazis. And basically, fortunately, the Russian people, like we need to do, basically threw them off and got them out of their country. And now they're having to go clean up other countries. Yeah. All right. So that's where we are right now. We need to clean up our country like Russia cleaned up the Soviet Union. Patrick, what do you say?
I say that, first of all, Scott has a spectacular Angela Merkel and Russian impression. I hope you try that Russian one on RT, by the way. Do you have a Klaus Schwab, please?
You will own nothing and you will be happy for it.
It's some transhumanism from Klaus Schwab.
I am the Bond villain.
I knew
nothing, and you will love it. You will like it.
No, and but to touch on something you had mentioned earlier about with that drone, there was a big fire, the evidence building in New York. You notice how that really long building was burning equally on both ends and in the middle? Does it kind of sound like maybe a number of drones hit it simultaneously? And if that's the case, why not? Right? I'm not condoning it, but from, I used to get paid to think of these things, and if I had evidence in there, I could sit miles away and drop incendiaries on that, and boom, all the evidence is gone.
That's why they kill the
What are we gonna
POW.
do? I mean, Mike, we were in, when you were in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I mean, they lived day to day where people would strap on bombs and just blow shit up, and fear was something that just became a daily part of life in Iraq. I fear that we may be heading to that and not even know it yet.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Now we keep talking about these white hats. I think there's been some stuff in the background. I hear from sources that stuff has been going on, but like I'm saying, it's the time to like do things behind the scenes is over. It's time to go full bore, out in the open, reveal all information, take down anyone you know has been bad, and that needs to happen like tomorrow morning. After that, then if you're not involved, if you're not doing it, I'm going to start to look at you as a part of the problem from this point on.
Mike, one of the things that we're facing is the invasion of the United States across the southern border, and all of these other things in Europe and Ukraine and such are distraction operations. Iran and Russia don't represent a threat in the United States at all. What represents a threat is our border, southern border, being overwhelmed by tens of thousands of illegal immigrants that want to make a better life. I understand that, but you know what? The border and the government of the United States is to protect the citizens of the United States. And we are going to be flooded, especially they're talking about the 42, the code 42 being thrown out or something by a judge. The absence of Abbott and these other governors mobilizing the National Guard, the militias, the Boy Scouts, and anybody else up to go to that border and say, by no means necessary is any person going to be crossing and invading the state of Texas or the state of Louisiana or anywhere else, period. Their failure to do that, if they don't activate the guard and say this is an invasion, all lines are cut off. We don't care what the federal border does. We care about the Texas border. And no one is crossing the Texas border. And no federal bus or plane from Biden is going to be allowed onto Texas land to do anything. And I'm going to authorize the guard to arrest and prosecute anyone for aiding and abetting the illegal alien entry of people into the United States. There's a law. So if the governors of Texas don't stand up and stop this, we're really going to witness a flood into this country that could be absolutely devastating in the long and the short term. And especially if the COVID-19 thing, with all these people being vaccinated, you're going to have a dead military. The Ron Johnson, that's something else to mention. We did a show talking about Ron Johnson's Senate hearing in which he was presenting all these doctors and scientists, military doctors, that were saying, here are all the incidences of every bad thing you can imagine, from brain clots to heart myocarditis to abortions to deformed babies, right? Babies coming out like the Elephant Man with missing appendages and all this stuff, all linked to the COVID-19 vaccine. And Ron Johnson had a hearing. You know what the failure is? That hearing in Ron Johnson's office should have been in a joint session of Congress. You should have had every single person in the United States government, the military, the Supreme Court, the Senate, and the House, hearing this greatest war of genocide and a bioweapon upon the American people in the form of the COVID-19 vaccine. That didn't happen. The only thing you had was a small little room with people presenting to Ron Johnson. That is an abomination. Because there's no reason why the government.
Now, from that point on, just like you were talking about before, once you know that there's a problem and you do nothing, it's now felony on your ass. So Ron Johnson is going bye-bye. All right. So, I think this Lloyd Brunson, thing is going, if it even comes to that point, because we might see something happen before that. But if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court on January 6th, very interesting day. And they basically vote against, they vote in favor, 9-0, because anyone that doesn't is basically going against the Constitution at this point. So they would be held accountable as well. So they're going to go 9-0 if it gets, and it's already been accepted. They're going to look at it. So it's a done deal. So as we get closer, the clock is ticking on these people. Ron Johnson, I don't know if he voted against Trump or with Trump. I have to look at it, but his actions basically on the non-response from the COVID-19 vaccination that was presented him, he's done. And he basically from that point on, he sat on that information and then went out and did nothing but politic on how great he is for exposing that. But he did nothing. It's the same thing with Ron Paul, Fauci sitting before him, lying in front of Congress. Nothing happened. So Ron Paul, you're in trouble too, buddy. So all these people are, going to have probably legal action or something even more happen to them going forward.
Because we can't survive in a republic of clowns and fools who like to look at their own mirror, their image, mirror on the wall. Who's the woke of them all? And this isn't we're not here for this. We're here to raise families, raise businesses, live in peace, and enjoy the fruits of the American Constitution. And we have fools all around us saying, if you don't get this shot, you're going to be fired. If you don't get the shot, you're going to be kicked out of the military. Well, the shot kills everybody who gets it, short or long term. It causes devastating health effects. All of that is proven. And yet our government from every level is trying to force this on people. If there's not a revolution in this country, a violent revolution against the violence that's being perpetrated against the American people, then the American people are dead and gone. It is a judgment of God upon them. It is Sodom and Gomorrah. There are no righteous men left in America, except perhaps those on this call and those watching this show. And I wouldn't be surprised, but and I wouldn't cry for it. This country is what? What are we based on now? Idolatry, wokeism. My God, Russia is the only country that passed into its constitution marriages between a man and a woman, which is the right thing to do. I remember back in the early 2000s, we didn't have people in the United States Congress that had the balls to do that. They passed the Defense of Marriage Act. They didn't alter the American Constitution as the Russians did to say marriage is between a man and a woman, period. And now you've got Mitt Romney and the rest of these rhinos and these Democrat lunatics passing the gay marriage, protection of marriage, trying to force every state in the union to recognize a homosexual marriage as valid. That's not going to happen. But I mean, this country is on very thin ice. I'm waiting to see it fall through and sink into the dark abyss of oblivion.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Scott, how can people reach you?
Well, if I'm not in jail or hanging by a hangman's noose by the deep state bad guys, which of course I'd come back to life and kill them all, go to shellgamewhistleblower.com. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/shellgame. We also have a new channel that we're starting, and I want you and Pat on. It's called globalfreedomtv.com. Okay. And we're translating the language into Vietnamese. The founders are Vietnamese Americans, but globalfreedomtv.com is where I've started this new programming, because American media Periscope, in my opinion, have turned out to be a bunch of communists and Mossad operatives. Go ahead.
Patrick, where can people reach you?
You can reach me at Patreon, the patreon.com/American Awakening, or the American Awakening, I forget. And freedomstream.tv. I'm probably going to be taking freedomstream.tv down the end of the year, simply because it's just costing too much money to maintain it. I'll keep a backup on it. Things turn around, which I believe they are. Once this story gets out, it won't be stopped. But until then, I've got all these people that are just making up lies and doing everything they can to do it, and it takes a toll on you. Yeah. So I'm probably going to be taking that down. But till the end of the year, that's a great way. I've got a lot of information at freedomstream.tv. I've got the Patreon, and I've got a local set up that I'm just establishing for the Bergy-Bit American Awakening, right? So you can find me on locals and as well. I have a YouTube, but that's just to make a point. I like to them. They just help prove my point.
No doubt. And so definitely, invite everybody to go in and subscribe to you guys. I'm subscribed, so it's good information. I like it, and I look forward to you guys coming on again. Great reveal tonight, guys. Wow, this is stunning information that from this point, everybody should be looking very hard at the people we talked about, and there should be no going forward for them. No going forward for them. Right. But I know they will. They will. There's still people that don't believe and are going to continue not to believe until I don't know. I have this one woman that's in my my chat in my my live stream, my own personal channel, and she's always talking about bitch slaps. And I was like, God, that's beautiful. So many people need to be bitch slapped awake. And I was bitch slapped one time by a high-ranking, master chief in the military when I was in prison war camp. I was going off track, and he brought me back to my senses. And from that point on, I carried on. I've done real good stuff in the military. So
I was bitch slapped by a drill sergeant.
Yeah, see, sometimes it helps.
Well, you're not supposed to watch where a grenade goes. It seems obvious, right? But not at the time.
So sometimes it helps. It's helpful. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having the courage, Michael Jaco.
As a trainer.
Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, I got the courage, no doubt about it. But like you've got to, I'm going to put it out there. If I'm not here tomorrow, it's like I've done my duty. I've supported the Constitution against foreign and domestic. So move forward. All right.
Hey, if you and Tracy Joe make it over to Pasco County, I got some cookies.
Okay. Well, I know Tracy Joe likes cookies, so it could happen. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, guys. Great to be with you, Scott and Mike. Nice. All right, where's my button? Host. There we are. All right. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. Let me see. I got sound okay. Looks okay. Can everybody hear me all right? So you agree with what they said, Bergy, on Russia? I have my own opinions on Russia, really, to be honest with you. So, agree with some, not with other. Okay. I agree with Scott that we totally fucked up. Full disclosure, my second wife of marriage of only a few weeks, she was Russian. And what I discovered, one of the biggest things that actual Russian people, family members and stuff, seem to have an issue about is post-perestroika, after everything fell apart, Russia was trying to put together a constitution, right? And America had an opportunity to kind of play the role of the bigger person and help them write their constitution. And from everything that I've seen, or at least the history that they've been told and understand, we failed them on that. We didn't provide support. We didn't come in and help them write a constitution. We could have. So in our absence, basically the black market took over. The mob ruled. At a certain point, if you weren't working for the mob, you were a victim of the mob, and those were the only two types of Russians that there were. So yeah, I mean, so that's where I would differ from like Scott's stuff with Russia. But I actually don't differ with it. I agree with most of the stuff he said there. But no, so we failed in these areas. That doesn't mean you don't try again. But Russia has been trying to push misinformation and disinformation on us for decades and decades and decades and decades. Iran, South Korea, the UK, so even our friends, are constantly trying to push misinformation and disinformation into our society to be able to cause chaos and destabilize it. There are adversaries. These are easy, cheap things for them to do. So we have to be vigilant when it comes to, in my opinion, everybody outside. But that doesn't mean that we also have to have some sort of xenophobia either. I lived overseas almost 7 years altogether. Iraq and Afghanistan hardly really count for living. But in South Korea, when I was in South Korea on a contract, I was able to bounce all over the Southeast Asia. And, you go to other countries, you respect their laws, and you try to represent yourself as an American best you can. I certainly lowered the bar for most of us when I would travel around. But that's okay. Right? So, what other questions do we have here? Cold in Vegas. Hello, Bergy. Greetings from cold, beautiful northern Arizona. You're not in a trailer, are you? One of those trailer park. They got some freaking sociopaths in those trailer parks in Arizona. I say watch out for those. Watch, you're actually like in a trailer park in Arizona. That would be sort of bad, but... what do we got here? Refuse to be scared into the... European, and it's interesting to see how media works and what different people from different countries here. I don't have any media that isn't independent. Yeah, like I said, I lived overseas. When I was in South Korea, although I worked on base, I lived on the economy. And, my access was very limited in South Korea to anything from the U.S. homeland. Some of it was pirated. For a while, actually, for the first, maybe a year or so after I arrived, so maybe about 2011, 12, you can Google it, AFN, Armed Forces Network, was broadcasting locally their AFN network through just an open TV channel. And the South Korean cable company was just like pirating that signal and replaying it on South Korean cable with commercials and stuff. So the copyright issues started arising there. But no, there was like very little access. That got shut down. Very little access to what was actually going on in America. It's one of the reasons I started Freedom Stream, actually, was to try to bring, originally try to bring video on demand to our troops overseas. Because during elections and processes like that, our troops, there were 30,000 strong between contractors and military in South Korea. Every one of them votes. You want them to be able to have information. It was impossible for me to watch the gubernatorial election, the gubernatorial debates in Florida, for example, when I was in South Korea, until a couple days afterwards, when somebody would like pirate it on YouTube until it got taken down. Then you would really start running into problems because of the geolocation filtering and such. So you couldn't just go to like Netflix and get Netflix when you're overseas, unless you used a VPN, a DNS VPN, which would hide where you were from, but then they figured that out. So, no, Bergy, we live a single-family dwelling, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. We're outside Sedonia. All the neighbors are retired veterans. Second Amendment all the way. Very cool. Okay, so we've been 18, 20 degrees. So that's good. They do not live in a trailer park. Stay away from the trailer parks in Arizona. Only in Arizona. Anything over here? Wow, that was me. I have to hang out here more. Okay, thank you very much. As long as it doesn't get shut down, Reagan. Normally I try to be a little more careful. But like I said, I'm working with. Well, I spoke to Scott earlier today, and I was like, Scott, man, Scott's just a few. He lives just a few blocks away from Twitter. Like I said, we got to get Scott out of San Francisco. You can tell he's been there too long. Get to Florida. We got Mike to move here. Actually, I think Searston W got him to move here. And but he lives about 3 blocks from Twitter. And so this weekend he's going to reach out to our attorney friend, Mr. Pigeon, and see if Mr. Pigeon would help us put together something that Scott can walk down to Twitter, which apparently is like an abandoned hotel. It's how it's being described. Walk up to the receptionist people and say, listen, this is not like not like filing like a legal court thing with them, but just an official formal request for information, based on information, based on information coming out from Twitter. We believe that a tactical coordinated suppression of Shadowgate immediately following the arrest of an American journalist, Millie Weaver, which basically shadow banned Shadowgate. That's hard to say. Worldwide, after first going viral with millions of views. Why was Shadowgate banned? Now, most of the examples, and this kind of sucks, and this kind of goes back to, okay, but like every example that you see, USA Today, and every example out there that they used to ban it was based on Tori's background and the claims that she was making that they had no verification or authentication to them. So yeah, I get it, but regardless of that, that was no justification to take something down, especially after a journalist had been arrested and nobody knew the true reason for it. Again, she could have been, I'm not debating what the reason for that was. I'm just stating a fact, and that is nobody knew for sure, other than there was a sealed indictment that, by the way, was later thrown out based as baseless, as far as I was told. Maybe a deal, maybe some sort of deal was cut. I still wonder about all of this. Maybe some sort of a deal was cut. Her family was threatened. They were threatened to take her kids away. Where was Trump during all of this? Right? Does anybody care? Does anybody care where President Trump was when an American journalist who worked for InfoWars, and we know Trump listens to InfoWars, are you telling me a documentary called Shadowgate exposing the Obama-Biden presidency using social media psychological warfare weapons we as taxpayers paid for to use against to defend ourselves against our adversaries, being used commercially to influence elections in the U.S.? That seems relevant, right? Where was President Trump? Are you telling me he didn't know that? And if he didn't know, holy shit, who was around him? So I'm saying he absolutely had to know. So my next question was someone in his administration behind the shadow ban? Why? Because Shadowgate was exposing Cambridge Analytica. General Flynn was on the board of Cambridge Analytica. Many people, Ali Akbar, many people were connected to Cambridge Analytica. That was a big call out for Shadowgate. Whoever was behind it, it's very clear, unmistakably, indisputable that Shadowgate was taken down in such a manner that could not have been accomplished by some 400-pound kid sitting in his grandparents' basement. This was a tactical controlled, somebody used the bat phone, right? At the White House or at the White House or at Atlantic Council. Shit, I didn't bring that over. I'm gonna bring that over, right? And can I? Boy, I want to. Did I put that on? Where did I put that on? Okay, hold on 1 second here. Hold on. I put it on Truth. I can play it from there. I think I put it on Truth. Yeah. Bear with me one moment. I didn't plan on this. Okay. I'm assuming I haven't even looked at the comments and stuff. I'm assuming I'm just being attacked half the time on there. Okay, there we go. Twitch, there we are. Okay, here we go. Let me do this. Let me
Exactly where
stop. Boom. There, I moved it over here. Nice. Hold on. Let's do this. Studio mode. Capture full. Get the right scene. Bergy-Bit truth. Yay! Hold on.
Hello,
Here we
everyone.
go.
It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets.
Hold on,
We got
that's
Scott
not
Bennett
supposed to start.
and Patrick Bergy.
Jeez
These guys are the
Louise.
intel guys. Now, I was like the knuckle dragger that would, go out and.
Can I hold on? Capture full. Stop that. There. Actually, let me do this. Out of studio mode. Capture full. Here. Hold on. Let me restart this. Hold on. Damn it. Shit. Oh, it's from here. Hold on. There we go.
all that flag, exactly where all that flagging comes out of the government and how it comes back to companies like Twitter. And one of the things that's fascinating is that there's just so many entry points for these, you know, this like FBI flag material. It might go directly to Twitter. It might go via somebody they know at the company, you know, the former general counsel there. It might go, it might go in bulk. You know, the FBI sends bulk requests for possible violative content. It might go through the Stanford Project. It might go through the Atlantic Council.
No!
Jones was tapped as the chairman of the board of Atlantic Council to replace John Huntsman. One of the first orders of business that he did with the Atlantic Council was to create a partnership with Facebook, right? That happened a month after Mark Zuckerberg sat in front of Congress.
Yes, I mean, they did not want their information to be sold to Cambridge Analytica by a developer. And that happened, and it happened on our watch. So even though we didn't do it, I think we have a responsibility to be able to prevent that and be able to take action sooner.
So as a month after they do that, Facebook partners with General Jones at the Atlantic Council to restore election integrity worldwide, right? So the best out of 7 billion people on the planet,
best you could do.
Mark Zuckerberg picks the owner of the ShadowNet?
Really?
President Donald Trump and Mike Pence both ran ads on Facebook that included a symbol of an upside down red triangle.
Oh my God.
Facebook today removed the ads.
Facebook has taken action against what it calls harmful misinformation from President Trump. The company deleted a post by the president that included a false statement.
To restore election integrity worldwide, we all know that he was directly connected to Cambridge Analytica through Cygroup and Wikistrat.
Oh my God.
Essentially what they did was they partnered with Cambridge Analytica again.
Oh my God. Well, that just seems silly, doesn't it? Hey, stop. That just seems silly. Who the fuck would do something like that? Well, that started out, the first part of the video was from yesterday. Matt Taibbi. Isn't he the guy? Was he the guy from that 70s show? I'm not sure. I don't know. Why would Elon tap the guy from that 70s show? I don't know, but I digress. He's got a hot wife. So Matt Taibbi, he comes out and says, "Oh my God, they had very distinct channels set up that they had bulk channels for the FBI, right? Did you catch him say that they purchased the FBI would purchase information? So they were, if I'm not mistaken, they were going in, our government was purchasing data from Twitter, I believe we know, and then turning around and using that data that we purchased from them to filter and decide, and then go through and decide who gets removed, blocked. And don't get me wrong, there is a component for that, right? I said earlier, we've got Russia, we've got Iran, we've got China, we've got Korea, North Korea, South Korea, probably. We have to do things to protect ourselves until we find a way as a species to kind of like say, this is out of bounds. The hacking of our shadows, the hacking of our minds, the spreading of misinformation and disinformation. I don't know, what do you do with like a assault treaty thing for social media? I don't have the solution. I have the solution through the National Public Internet, NPI. That's the solution for us. Be kind of cool if, Elon Musk donated Twitter, turned Twitter into the NPI, into a veterans-based nonprofit. Just kind of donated it to a veterans-based nonprofit. He could write billions off in losses that he would have probably never recovered. And that could be the foundation of the National Public Internet, but that would have to be like on a separate, isolated thing. Doesn't really solve all the other problems. So, something has to be done to protect our country from misinformation and disinformation from other countries, but something also has to be done to protect American citizens from being served misinformation and disinformation by our own country, right? So we can debate the ethics on what we do to other people. And I vote for taking the high ground. But we can't debate whether or not, we can't debate the ethics of our own government weaponizing social media, our data. If those motherfuckers are purchasing our data, using it to filter out and decide who they want to suppress speech from, and then getting back on their fucking bat phone with Mark Zuckerberg and Twitter and saying, remove or just batching the files to the FBI from the FBI to Twitter. Holy shit. Holy shit. Now, Matt Taibbi says that, right? Again, I don't know how much we can trust that guy from the 70s show. But his wife's just so darn cute. But she's Russian. Oh, and by the way, he was like on something earlier today where he had like an Adidas, sweatsuit on, which, by the way, Russians call a Russian leisure suit. So they love their Adidas. Look at me. No, I don't want to disparage Matt Taibbi. He's actually doing a pretty good job. God bless him. He made some very good points. You should try to keep following what he's doing. He made some very good points. He's like, we should just count our blessings that we have access to this, and we shouldn't just assume we're going to continue to have access. There are people right now trying to sue them and are going to use any excuses that they can to stop the dissemination of this information from coming out. We have to move fast, right? Like I said, I think it's going to be if in the first part of the week or something, we can get freaking Scott to drop this off at Twitter. I think if Elon Musk had it in his hands and saw what happened around Shadowgate, the arrest of an American journalist, I doubt Elon Musk has ever heard that before in his life, right? Now, what's his name? The heavy guy, .com has, and he engages with Elon Musk, I guess, once in a while. But man, you know, that was I can only assume the suppression on that was quite significant. We need to find out. I want to find out who, from what was the source initially, and all together. What were the sources of the information coming out of, or that were involved in stopping? I'm sorry, in shutting down Shadowgate. Would love if they could check out like Ali Akbar's DMs while they're in there. They can check out my DMs. I got no problem with that. That would be fucking cool because I bet you, think about it, and I'm going to get going here in just a moment, but think about, you're like, you sure, wow, everybody's saying, Elon Musk paid like $35 billion too much. But he just paid $44 billion for what amounts to probably the largest just intelligence dump in the history of mankind. Can we go there? Holy shit. Everybody used Twitter DMs, unencrypted, right? Think about it. This guy has the goods on fucking everyone. Matt Taibbi, that 70s show kid, is not going to have access to some of the most, that stuff. But yeah, unencrypted, Tony, absolutely. Think about it. He's got the most intelligence, the largest single purchase of high value intelligence in the history of mankind. If he parted some of that shit out just in form of blackmail, he's going to get his money back in the first month. Now, I don't get the impression that he's going to do that or needs to do that. I think he's really pissed that he was forced into buying this when he tried to get out of it. And so these guys were like, well, they wanted to try to get it, force him to pay like that $1 billion payout to be able to walk away from it. And he's like, fuck you guys. He turns around and he buys it, and then he's pissed off that he paid about $35 billion too much for it. And he just wants to, fuck you guys. I told you you should have just let me walk away. And I bet you they're probably going, we should have just let him walk away. That's my guess. But at any rate, these are big things right now, my friends. If you can help out, please do. Like I said, I've got to shut down freedomstream.tv because just of the bills that are going to be coming up in January and February on a couple renewals of big licenses and stuff that I can't afford to do. But what I am going to do is I have a great backup of it. And if things turn around and these pieces of shit that have just done everything they possibly can to destroy me with lies and misinformation, as soon as we can get that taken care of, which, if this happens, like let's say, for example, if Scott can get this into there, and let's say Elon Musk gets this story and looks at it and goes, holy fuck, yeah, pull up this shit. Let's get this guy in here. Because they did that to another guy. See, that would change everything. Everything. They could not keep this suppressed. And James Baker, he's tied to Mike Keatam with McCain. No. If this happens, we can get it into court. If this happens, if this happens, it will get so much attention on it. I'll be able to get this out. We'll be able to everything will be good, right? But we're dealing with very powerful people, billionaires. Patrick Byrne, 3-star general, sociopaths. Couldn't have imagined how long it's taken, but this is kind of cool. This information coming out from Twitter absolutely proves what I was saying is correct. Please, if you can help out, do so. Patreon.com/American Awakening. Freedomstream.tv/contribute. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Going to take Roy out to the park. Well, it's going to rain probably tomorrow. I tell you, my legs are freaking destroyed from that in a good way, right? I'm actually, the swelling's going down in my feet. And balance is doing better. It's going to take more time, more work. Tons of benefits from this. Drawback, rain. It's rained yesterday, and it's probably going to rain tomorrow. But I got some great video with this. We're going to set some stuff up with Stevie coming up soon to shoot some video for some music video that for his girlfriend. We're going to have some fun with this, folks. We're going to have some fun. So, everyone, please have an absolute blessed weekend. We got Christmas right around the corner. I know there's a lot of stress and everything, but don't be stressed, right? Find yourself some good special Christmas cookies. Probably something like Missing Parts makes. And enjoy yourself, right? Thank God for your family and everything that you got in your life. Remember, most of this shit is just fabricated that they're pushing out anyway, right? They're just hacking your brains. Don't let them do it. It's not 5D chess, it's 2D chess. They were mentioning that earlier in our thread. God bless everyone. I will see you on Monday. May drop something before then, but you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, my friends. Where's my button? We will see you Monday.
We're only really here because thus far you've been right.